during one of the preseason games, I think it was the final one because Irvin was in the booth, you were talking about how Tom Brady has ruined it for everyone else. Okay, you got offensive line issues, you got problems, just get the ball out in 2 seconds. Just get the ball out in 1.7. Can you just explain just that entire process, Babe, and why you can't copy it throughout the rest of the league? Because a big storyline going into this, offensive line Bucs, offensive line Cowboys.
Yeah, and he's just so ridiculous in every regard, is he not? I mean, the other part of it is playing at 45.
Yeah.
You know, guys at 34 or 35, they had the handkerchief up at the podium, wiping tears from their eyes, saying it's been a great run. And typically those last 2 or 3 years for these guys have been, not great. And now you're like, these 45, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, these guys are going and not just playing. They're playing. I mean, he's at literally the top of his game. Brady could have been the NFL MVP last year.
Yeah.
At 44 years old. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, the other part is, to your point, RJ. Hey, don't have an offensive line. Who cares? Don't have receivers. Hey, Tom Brady had Randy Moss and a couple other guys, but guy won 7 Super Bowls. That's another ridiculous thing, by the way. Tom Brady has won more Super Bowls than any other organization in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of times you try to bring a stat to the table, right? Like for the game Sunday night or for this show, and you say, hey, you probably didn't know this, but I mean, he owns every record. He's thrown for 84,000 yards. The list just goes on and on. There's nothing you can say about Brady where somebody would say, oh, I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So, Babe, how does it work with, how do things have to work offensively in order to protect your offensive line to get it out?
Talking Cowboys now.
Yeah, or Bucs. Just
yeah.
Tom and this, and we keep track of the stat now in terms of releasing the football.
Yeah, time to throw. It's called time to throw, which is not like a protection stat. It's how fast they throw it.
Right. And here's one, too. We love the dual threat quarterback, and this is not a knock on Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, or any of these guys that can, have that 4.3 speed. It's great. It's awesome. It puts pressure on the defense. Brady was the hardest guy to sack in the NFL last year. And it's not because he's moving, but he just processes things, as we all know, so quickly. And the ball is out. I mean, you can have a free runner at him. You can design the greatest blitz in the world, and you say, we got 2 guys running free, and he got the ball off.
Yeah.
But I'm going to flip it, though. The Cowboys, there's no question they're going to have to give some help to the left tackle. But you can't sit there going into a game saying, we're going to play 2 tight ends, and we're going to sit that second tight end right next to our left tackle, and any pass play, he is staying in the block. You're going to have to switch it up. You're going to have to have running backs chip before they go out in the pattern. You're going to have a tight end there sometimes, and sometimes, let's face it, Tyler Smith is just going to be singled up.
Yeah.
But the thing to remember, everybody's going into the tank, and you guys addressed a little bit of Tampa Bay. Hey, they're out there center and their left guard. Pro Bowl center, by the way, out for the season. We don't care about that, do we?
Right.
Here it's like, are they still going to play the game because Tyron Smith can't play? Are they still going to play on Sunday night? And it's like, yeah, you know what? The NFL brought out the schedule, and they're going to make them play. So there are ways to win these things. I always tell Brad, he makes fun of me in a good way. But I always say, and I said, Brad, there are ways to win all these things.
Babe, how do you think this plays out with Jason Peters? Do you eventually get him in there at left tackle? Do you see how it goes with Tyler early on? Well, what are you hoping for? What are you thinking if you're Dak Prescott as you go from Tyron to Tyler and maybe Jason?
Yeah, I don't obviously have a crystal ball, and I think a big part of it is how does Tyler Smith play? He's going to struggle a little bit. He could have been the first pick in the draft. You're going to struggle a little bit going to left tackle, especially not having worked there in training camp. But I keep telling people it's not like the guy won a contest at Albertsons, right, where they said, hey, be the left tackle for a game. I mean, he's a first-round pick. He played, started 40-some games at Tulsa at left tackle. So, he knows how to play football. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different at the NFL level. But so a big part of Jason Peters playing, how does Tyler Smith play? So we don't know that. And I don't know I was up there. I've been up there the last couple of days for practice and all that, and I can see Jason Peters, but I don't know what kind of shape he's in. I don't know what he's been doing the off season. He's a huge man. Let me just say that. You're going to get 2.5 seconds just by somebody having to run around him. So, but again, all that is to be determined, I think.
So does it? Does it also matter how McGovern plays? Like if he is just awful, would you consider moving Tyler back in? But if Tyler's playing well, do you want to make that move?
I'm glad you brought that up because you know what's funny? I went back this week and I looked at the Tampa game from last year. Looked at the all-22 and I just, running back and forth. And you know who played pretty darn well? Conor McGovern. I mean, he played very well against Tampa. And if you recall, Zach Martin missed that Tampa game. He had COVID, so Conor McGovern had to go in and play right guard. He did have a week of practice. Fortunately, it wasn't like a game-time thing where Zach Martin developed COVID and he had no practice time. But Conor McGovern played well. So I'm kind of excited to see what he brings to the table this year, having all the reps at left guard. Because as I spoke to him yesterday in the locker room, he'd been moving around. He'd been playing some center, some right guard. And this year they plugged him in and stuck him at left guard. And there's a lot to be said for just learning that one position.
Babe Laufenberg with Shan and RJ every Thursday at this time on 105.3 The Fan. So the Cowboys have been making some comments about their offense that is making RJ's skin crawl. And I remember you last year in the second half of the season, you kept saying really a lot of these struggles offensively. I know we got the Dak injury issues, the Kellen Moore, receivers. It's the run game. You kept talking about the run game falling off. And Jerry has said we're going to go as Zeke goes, and McCarthy wants to run it more. Pass happy Choppy, despises that statement. So what do you think about it, Babe? More emphasis on the run, or we go as Zeke goes?
I don't think they go as Zeke goes because I want to see Tony Pollard touch the ball more this year. And that's not to say Tony Pollard should be your starting running back. I'm not saying that, but the one area where I think we all, right, media, fans, whoever, football people looked at it and said, wow, why is Tony Pollard not getting the ball more? And I kept waiting each and every week. As the season progressed and you could see Zeke was hampered, he was not the same back. I kept thinking this will be the week that Tony Pollard touches it 15 times. This will be, Then it didn't happen. And I said, well, this week will be the week. And so if I looked at one area of deficiency for the coaching staff last year, and I really don't second guess a whole ton. It's easy to after the game or, why didn't they run it? Why didn't they throw it? But that was one that had me scratching my head saying, we see what this guy can do. We see what that guy can do. And, hey, when they come into this game, the only really explosive playmaker they have is CD Lamb. And then that's followed by Tony Pollard. Dalton Schultz, love him at tight end, right? Noah Brown may have a fine game, catch everything thrown to him, but they're not what you would call explosive players. Tony Pollard is one. So I'm just hoping they get the ball in his hands. When the game ends, somehow, some way, he's got 15 touches.
One of the great mysteries of the season is the quarterbacks without their receivers. So you're a quarterback. A lot of people are still picking Green Bay, Super Bowl without Devontae. Chiefs are not going to fall off. Mahomes is just that great. Now, we're not putting Dak in Mahomes or Rodgers category, but he's going to be missing Amari Cooper. How much are you dropping these teams and these quarterbacks, Babe, who lost their number ones?
Well, some, but I think you're talking about, when you're talking to Aaron Rodgers, whatever word you want to use, he's beyond elite. He's rare. I mean, he's just rare. He's just off the charts good. So it's unfair to say, well, Aaron Rodgers is doing it. Why can't Dak do it? Or Tom Brady is doing it. Why can't Dak do it?
Right.
Those guys they're just so far off the charts in terms of what they do, their ability. The thing that amazes me every year about Rodgers, he ends up a season, he's got 4 interceptions. I mean, 5 interceptions.
Crazy.
It's year after year after year. And he is not a dink and dunk guy. I mean, you've seen it. We've all watched him, right? The ball's going down the field. He's throwing it into tight windows, all the above. And I'm like, I couldn't go a practice with 7-on-7 with no pass rush without throwing at least a couple. and here's this guy playing 16 or 17 weeks of NFL football, and he walks away with 4 interceptions at the end of the year. It's just crazy. But here's my thing about the receiving. You can always take one guy out. See, and CD has not had that, right? They have not said, we got to stop CD Lamb. They pretty much, teams have thrown the attention to Amari Cooper, who, by the way, in the opener last year against Tampa Bay had 13 receptions and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, I forgot.
So, yeah. Again, I went back, looked at the game, and I was like, oh, yeah, that happened. Oh, yeah, that happened too.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. So that's why I go back and try to get myself ready. But I go back, 2018, we all remember they had a pretty nondescript group of receivers. And I remember they were playing San Francisco in the preseason. Jason Garrett, we all know we're friends, and we took a little drive, and I'm driving back, and I said, Jason, and I never got into him about coaching. I never said, hey, play this guy, play. I didn't do that. That was not, we discussed football, but I said, Jason, I may be out of my lane here, but I said, I'm watching camp. You don't have anybody outside that's going to beat people. And I said, here's what, you know what's going to happen. Everybody's going to say Dak can't do it. Dak's not the guy. And this, you got to get somebody. So long and short, he said, hey, I always want you telling me what you think. I always want your opinion. I always want to hear. Don't think I don't. Anyway, if you recall, and many people don't, they start out 3-4. And the whole thing was, well, we know Dak isn't the guy. Dak's not the guy. They trade for Amari Cooper. They go to the playoffs. Change that season. If they don't get Amari Cooper that year, they don't go to the playoffs. So my fear is that could happen this year. Because if you want to take away a guy, you can take him away. Now, if CD doesn't beat you on the outside, who's going to be the guy to beat you? That's my fear.